Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Miss Keiko. Good morning, Pak Theo. Good morning, Mbak Widya. Good morning, Apple. Ya, Pak Keiko.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Mas G.
Morning, Pak Theo. Is there any presenter already here? Okay, there's no presenter yet.
There's no
waiting
presenter
to.
yet. Okay.
Yeah. No worries, Miss Apple. No worries. We still have plenty of time. Miss Keiko, are you in Manila already or still in Tokyo?
I'm still in Tokyo.
Wow, you must watching Olympics right now, right?
Not really.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think it's good that, to travel to any country is getting really difficult because of the Delta variant right now.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
all of
Yeah,
us
it hap-
need to just stay wherever
Yeah.
we are here now.
Yeah. I heard in Manila also they will impose another ECQ, right, Miss
Yeah.
Apple? Miss Keiko,
Yes, it
yeah.
will be starting August 6th until 20.
Mm.
Mm. Like last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Apple, what you're gonna do? So today and tomorrow would be the last shopping time for you.
Yes. Yeah, that will be the last. So there will be lots of people maybe going to the supermarket and the
Yeah,
grocery, I would assume.
you can still buy the essentials, but
Yeah.
for the non-essential item, perhaps
Yeah.
the
Yes, but I think they limit the people already going out, so they will just give a pass per household.
I see.
So that is like last year, like the early part of last year.
I see.
I still keep the pass, Miss Apple. The pass that I could go outside only on several days.
Yeah.
Only me.
And they widened the curfew hours, so it was start at
Okay.
8 p.m.
Okay. Yeah, I hope everything will be better sooner. Okay, good morning, Mr. Joris van Ette.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I can see you well. I
Ya,
can see your voice. That's good.
oke baiklah.
Baiklah.
Saya ganti baju dulu.
Oke, Pak, silahkan.
Yuk, udah, makasih.
Take your time. Yeah, take your time. Thank you. Mr. Brajespan.
Hi, good morning.
Okay. Good morning,
How
Mr.
are you?
Brajespan. Good, thank you. How are you, Mr. Brajespan?
Good, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
Good, always good. So I can see your voice and I can see your image. So yeah, that's all good. Thank you, Mr. Brajespan.
All right, thank you.
You're ready. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Mr. Jeff, thank you for coming again.
Morning, Gigi. How are you?
Good, thank you, Mr. Jeff Taylor. How is
morning,
there in
Joris
Manila?
Pradesh.
Yes.
Could you just confirm for me the sectors we're covering are education and
Education and urban development. Urban development.
Okay, that's great.
That's good. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Taylor.
I'll go quiet for a while, but I'll be
Sure.
here.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Selamat pagi, Bapak Ibu sekalian. Good morning. I see the resource speakers are already here. Thank you so much. Iya, Bapak Ibu, seminar akan dimulai pukul 9. Namun sebelumnya kami akan menyampaikan beberapa informasi seperti yang terlihat pada layar Bapak Ibu. Ya, attendees terus berdatangan. Ya. Ya, Bapak Ibu mohon mengisi daftar hadir pada link berikut yang terlihat pada screen. Kemudian nanti pada saat seminar apabila Bapak Ibu memiliki pertanyaan, silakan disampaikan melalui fitur Q&A atau raise hand. Seminar ini difasilitasi dengan terjemahan bahasa Indonesia dan bahasa Inggris pada Zoom. Dan untuk selengkapnya, rekan kami dari tim Bahasa Global akan menyampaikan bagaimana cara menggunakan fitur tersebut. Kepada tim Bahasa Global, silakan.
Baik, terima kasih. Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu sekalian. Izinkan kami dari Bahasa Global untuk membacakan panduan cara menggunakan fitur penerjemahan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow us from Bahasa Global to present the user guide how to use the interpretation feature. Berikut panduan cara mengaktifkan fitur penerjemahan pada aplikasi Zoom apabila Bapak atau Ibu menggunakan laptop atau PC. Pada bagian pojok kanan bawah akan terdapat lambang bola dunia. Mohon untuk diklik Language Interpretation dan memilih bahasa yang Bapak atau Ibu ingin dengarkan. Mohon tidak perlu mute original audio dan tidak perlu pindah ke channel saat berbicara. Ladies and gentlemen, If you are accessing the Zoom using a laptop or PC, simultaneous interpretation services are available. You can go to the bottom right of your screen. There you will find globe icon or language interpretation button. Click it and select the language that you wish to listen. We recommend you to not mute original audio. If you would like to speak, you don't have to turn off the interpretation button as well. Bila Bapak atau Ibu mengakses meeting kali ini menggunakan mobile phone, fitur penerjemahan secara simultan juga tersedia. Bila Bapak atau Ibu ke pojok kanan bawah akan ada 3 titik. Jika diklik akan ada language interpretation. Lalu klik, pilih bahasa yang Bapak atau Ibu ingin dengarkan. Dan tidak perlu mute original audio. Dan terakhir jangan lupa klik done bila sudah selesai. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are accessing the Zoom using a mobile phone, simultaneous interpretation services are available. You can go to the bottom right of your screen. There you will find 3 dots. Click it and click language interpretation and select the language that you wish to listen. We also recommend you to not mute original audio and don't forget to click done when you have selected. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih tim Bahasa Global. Semoga itu cukup jelas ya bagi Bapak Ibu. Semoga Bapak Ibu dapat menggunakannya selama seminar berlangsung. Saya informasikan kembali bahwa seminar akan dimulai pukul 9 tepat. Dan Bapak Ibu silakan juga ada di chat box terkait link-link yang boleh diisi oleh Ibu. Silakan. Ya, ada di chat box. Terima kasih. Ya, sekian dari saya. Semoga Bapak Ibu dapat menggunakan link tersebut dengan baik. Sampai bertemu pukul 9. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, Bapak, Ibu. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Praise to God, because of His blessing and mercy, we can come together today on 4th of August, 2021, in a very good opportunity. The Honorable Director for Business Climate Development and International Affairs of LKPP, Ibu Dwi Wahyuni Kartianingsih, the Honorable Mr. Jeffrey Taylor, Director for Procurement Division 1, Asian Development Bank, the Honorable Resource Speakers, Mr. Rajesh Pan, Chief of Education Sector Group, ADB, Mr. Joris van Etten, Senior Urban Development Specialist, ADB, Ms. Jenny Chu, Procurement Specialist, ADB, and the Honorable Bapak Jaka Sumanta, President Director for PT Kogas. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen from Indonesia Businesses Association and also line ministries, we highly appreciate your time for being with us today. I am Ferisa Rahmani, Bilateral and Regional Cooperation Analyst, and I'm very pleased to welcome each and every one of you in this series of Business Opportunity Seminar today with ADB. As we have done the first session yesterday. This event is brought to you by the collaboration between LKPP and ADB, specifically Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department. This event aims to obtain information about business opportunities and share experience regarding success stories in participating the procurement or projects funded by ADB. The seminar will begin with an opening remarks, continue with the presentation from our great speakers, and then discussion or Q&A, and closing. Before we jump to the next agenda, I'm going to inform you some essential here you may see on the chat box. All right, I hope my explanation is sufficient for you. Let's move on to the first agenda, which is the remarks from Director for Business Climate Development and International Affairs of LKPP, Ibu Dwi Wahyuni Kartianingsih. She's in charge in formulating strategies, policies, and guidelines regarding business climate and international cooperation in government procurement. She's also the lead negotiator for Government Procurement Chapter in several FTAs. Ibu Dwi achieved her master's degree in Economics and Public Policy from School of Public Policy and Management, Korea Development Institute, Seoul, Korea. Without any further ado, Ibu Dwi, the room is yours.
Terima kasih, Mbak Ica. Very good morning for all of our distinguished guests. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, pertama-tama tentunya kita patut bersyukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala sehingga pagi ini kita dapat berkumpul kembali dalam acara seminar yaitu bertajuk peluang usaha. Kali ini kita akan mengikuti seminar peluang usaha, pengadaan barang jasa, dan kali ini kita akan mendengarkan peluang usaha untuk mengikuti di Asian Development Bank atau ADB. Bapak Ibu, sedianya welcome remarks ini itu disampaikan oleh Ibu Deputi, tetapi mohon izin Ibu Deputi pagi ini ada acara yang tidak dapat ditinggalkan. Oleh sebab itu Ibu Deputi menugaskan kami untuk menyampaikan welcome remarks beliau dalam acara ini. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, tentunya kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Ibu yang sudah berkenan meluangkan waktu untuk mengikuti seminar hari ini. Bapak Ibu dari perwakilan pelaku usaha nasional yang khusus hari ini perwakilan dari konsultan ya, kebanyakan konsultan. Kemudian Bapak Ibu undangan lainnya dari kementerian sebagai pembina pelaku usaha nasional. Kami lihat di sini sudah hadir rekan-rekan dari Kementerian Perdagangan, kemudian Kementerian Perindustrian, kemudian rekan-rekan dari Bappenas juga sudah datang hadir, kemudian Bapak Ibu dari PUPR juga mungkin nanti akan menyusul, dan tentunya kami mengucapkan terima kasih atas kerjasama dengan IDB untuk menyelenggarakan acara ini. Ini sudah hadir dari headquarter, IDB headquarter, Bapak Jeff Taylor, kemudian juga Bapak Joris Van Etten, Senior Urban Development Specialist, Bapak Brajes Pan, Chief of Education Sector Group, Ibu Jenny Chu, Procurement Specialist di sana, di IDB, kemudian nanti kita juga ada mendengarkan dari Bapak Jaka Sumanta, dari PT Kogas, sharing knowledge-nya untuk rekan-rekan semua, dan tentunya Bapak Ibu dari LKPP yang juga meluangkan waktu untuk hadir pada acara pagi ini. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, kami akan menyampaikan pertama-tama kenapa acara ini berlangsung. Tentunya ini adalah salah satu dari strategi LKPP untuk menciptakan atau memperluas kesempatan atau potensi berperan pelaku usaha nasional dalam pengadaan barang jasa pemerintah. Dan ini kita seperti ketahui bahwa sejak Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja yang sudah digulirkan pemerintah, itu pada konsepnya adalah menyediakan lapangan kerja sebanyak-banyaknya, kemudian juga memudahkan masyarakat, dalam hal ini khususnya pelaku usaha, untuk mendapat kesempatan, kemudian juga yang tidak kalah pentingnya adalah mendukung upaya pencegahan dan pemberantasan korupsi. Nah, dari Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja ini, Bapak Ibu, kami di LKPP memiliki 3 arah pengembangan kebijakan pengadaan barang jasa pemerintah kami. Yang pertama adalah inovasi kebijakan dan strategi pengadaan barang jasa dalam pinjaman atau hibah luar negeri. Nah, ini kenapa kami harus salah satu hal yang perlu dikembangkan untuk mewujudkan kerangka regulasi yang lebih sinergis dan tepat sasaran. Nah, ini kami sudah melakukan revisi Perpres 16 tahun 2018, sudah ada Perpres 12 tahun 2021. Kemudian khusus untuk PLN, saat ini kami sedang merevisi Peraturan LKPP nomor 10 tahun 2018. Dan juga kali ini sudah sampai pada proses harmonisasi. Kemudian Bapak Ibu, yang kedua adalah inovasi untuk strategi pengadaan barang jasa dalam rangka penguatan kapasitas SDM pengadaan barang jasa dan tentunya pelaku usaha nasional. Ini kenapa harus kita lakukan? Adalah untuk meningkatkan kapasitas dan awareness SDM pengadaan barang jasa dan pelaku usaha nasional. Nah, caranya adalah kami lakukan, salah satunya adalah dengan forum dialog, dan tentunya pelatihan peningkatan kapasitas SDM pengadaan barang jasa dan juga pelaku usaha, dan juga kami tetap melakukan evaluasi kebijakan kami sehingga dapat memperkaya atau meningkatkan kompetensi dari SDM PBJ tersebut. Kemudian Bapak Ibu, yang ketiga, ini tidak kalah pentingnya adalah kami melakukan peningkatan hubungan pemerintah dan development partner atau mitra pembangunan. Dalam hal ini kita perlu memahami lebih dalam terhadap agenda dan sasaran dari kita semua. Kemudian Bapak Ibu, salah satu hal yang dilakukan adalah dialog yang seperti saat ini kita lakukan. Bapak Ibu, peran dan sinergi antara aktor ini sangat penting dalam hal peningkatan peran pelaku usaha nasional dalam pengadaan barang jasa, khususnya internasional ya Bapak Ibu ya. Dalam hal ini LKPP bersama-sama dengan mitra pembangunan, kali ini adalah Asian Development Bank, dan juga Bapak Ibu dari Kementerian Lembaga Perangkat Daerah dan juga pelaku usaha nasional, untuk sama-sama kita lakukan sinergi antar stakeholder ini sangat penting. Kemudian Bapak Ibu, kalau kita lihat nanti tujuan dari kegiatan ini tentunya adalah menjadi ajang berbagi informasi dan pengalaman mengenai pengadaan barang jasa internasional antar pelaku usaha, mitra pembangunan, dan kementerian lembaga terkait. Ada 4 tujuan yang akan kami wujudkan dalam acara ini. Yang pertama adalah kami tentunya melalui acara ini memberikan informasi kepada pelaku usaha nasional tentang peluang bisnis yang ditawarkan mitra pembangunan. Hari ini kita akan mendengarkan dari Asian Development Bank. Kemudian juga tentunya selain itu memperluas pengetahuan pelaku usaha nasional tentang praktik terbaik internasional dalam pengadaan barang jasa dengan tentunya Bapak Ibu menggunakan regulasi yang dilakukan ya oleh mitra pembangunan. Kemudian juga tentunya acara ini bertujuan untuk meningkatkan kompetensi pelaku usaha nasional dalam mempersiapkan penawaran yang berkualitas dan responsif untuk proyek-proyek pengadaan yang didanai oleh mitra pembangunan. Dan yang tidak kalah pentingnya adalah dengan acara ini kami berusaha untuk meningkatkan minat pelaku usaha untuk berpartisipasi dalam pengadaan yang didanai oleh mitra pembangunan, baik di Indonesia maupun di luar negeri. Itu adalah tujuan dari kegiatan ini, Bapak Ibu. Dan acara ini, acara seminar peluang usaha ini, merupakan rangkaian seminar, Bapak Ibu. Kemarin, tanggal 28 Juli 2021, kami sudah melakukan seminar peluang yang sama. Dalam hal ini, kami bekerja sama dengan UNDP. Kemudian hari ini dan kemarin kami lakukan kerjasama dengan ADB tanggal 3 dan 4. Ini suatu hal yang sangat kami terima kasih sekali kepada ADB karena 2 hari mereka mengalokasikan acara ini tentunya agar dapat mengetahui secara lengkap, secara komprehensif bagaimana peluang usaha dalam pengadaan barang jasa yang didanai oleh ADB. Kemudian insya Allah pada minggu keempat mungkin atau September kita akan juga ada acara seminar peluang usaha di World Bank, dan tentunya kerjasama lainnya dengan mitra pembangunan. Kita harapkan bahwa seminar peluang usaha ini ada menjadi sustain, Bapak Ibu, berkelanjutan sehingga informasi-informasi terbaru atau mungkin ada pelaku usaha baru yang juga nanti bisa mengikuti acara-acara semacam ini. Untuk itu kita sama-sama tadi sinergi ya Bapak Ibu ya antara pelaku usaha, kementerian lembaga pemerintah daerah, juga mitra pembangunan dan LKPP. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, acara seminar peluang usaha bekerja sama dengan ADB ini tadi sudah kami kemukakan bahwa ada 2 hari. Kemarin kita fokus untuk sektor transportasi dan air, dan hari ini kita akan fokus pada sektor pembangunan dan pendidikan. Untuk itu memang peserta hari ini kebanyakan berlatar belakang konsultan, gitu ya Bapak Ibu ya. Jadi Bapak Ibu selamat datang. Kita pagi hari ini sampai dengan siang hari nanti akan mendengarkan knowledge yang menurut kami sangat bermanfaat, dan tentunya kami berharap juga akan bermanfaat bagi Bapak Ibu. Dan akhirnya Bapak Ibu kami ucapkan selamat mengikuti seminar, dan tentunya kita dapat berdiskusi free Bapak Ibu, artinya kemukakan saja pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang memang mungkin nanti akan Bapak Ibu kepingin lebih dalam begitu ya. Kemudian kita juga akhirnya dapat dengan mengikuti acara ini sampai akhir Bapak Ibu, dan kami harapkan Bapak Ibu juga dapat mengambil manfaat dari acara ini. Demikian Bapak Ibu opening ceremony ini. Sekali lagi kami ucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Ibu dan juga kepada Bapak Ibu dari ADB dan narasumber kami. Selamat mengikuti seminar. Kami kembalikan ke Mbak Ica. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you Ibu Di for the opening remarks. Raih kesempatan usaha ya Bu. Alright, moving along to the next agenda, it must be the remarks from Mr. Jeffrey Taylor, Director of Procurement Division 1, Asian Development Bank. His division covers ADB's portfolio in Central, West, and South Asia. Mr. Jeff has been working on a public procurement of infrastructure projects for 33 years, and the last 13 of which have been with ADB. He is chartered member of the Institute of Purchasing and Supply and holds a Master of Science in Procurement. So Mr. Taylor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Madam Director for her opening remarks. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. And I'd like to say good morning to our colleagues and friends in Indonesia and my colleagues and friends across ADB in various locations, and extend my thanks to the host organization for this event, LKPP, the National Procurement Agency, for helping us in partnership to organize this event. As you all know, ADB is a multilateral development bank, similar to the World Bank and others. And our aim is to improve the livelihoods of our developing member countries across Asia. Over the years, our portfolio has grown significantly and continues to grow. It currently stands at $102 billion of open sovereign projects, and that's complemented by $17 billion of open private sector non-sovereign projects. The sovereign projects are those that are guaranteed by our borrowing governments, and the private sector non-sovereign projects are those we're lending on commercial terms at risk. Last year, we approved $20 billion for COVID relief, with another $9 billion for vaccine procurement to assist our borrowers through this very, very difficult time in the pandemic. Last year, ADB itself procured over $200 million of consulting services. That was made up of about 4,000 contracts with individual consultants and 216 contracts with consulting firms. In addition to these consulting opportunities, there is a similar and slightly larger amount of consulting opportunities in our loan finance portfolio. And the number for that is approximately $300 million annually. And therefore, there's a whole wealth of opportunity for consulting firms and individual consultants within ADB's portfolio, which we hope you are interested in, and we hope that this session will provide you with some more insight into how you can approach these and hopefully win some contracts for yourself. All of our opportunities are advertised, and my colleague Jenny will go into more details about how you find the information there. And all of the goods and works procurement are also advertised both on our borrowers' websites and our own. What we're seeing over the years, and certainly in my time from 2007 to now at ADB, is growing levels of sophistication and complexity in what we require and what our borrowers require in terms of the competence. We've moved away significantly from traditional investment infrastructure, relatively straightforward but high value, to far more sophisticated areas of operations such as smart grids, integrated transport networks. And it's essential that the audience here in the private sector are able to respond to this. And I say that because it is not ADB and it is not our borrowers that build this infrastructure, but it's the private sector participants and consultants in this room that actually implement ADB finance projects. So we are seeing increased levels of sophistication and need the market to respond. One of the things that we have done with our procurement reforms in 2017 is place a far greater emphasis on the quality elements of procurement, moving away from just price considerations. Those of you that are familiar with ADB and have been following us for a number of years may be aware of our annual Business Opportunities Fair. And that was one of ADB's biggest events, last held in person in 2019 with over 1,000, around about 1,200 participants at the annual fair. We have continued to do these, but now virtually. And last year, our virtual event had over 1,000 participants again, and we're hoping for similar or larger numbers late in Q3 of this year for our next Business Opportunities Fair. And that's a very good forum, even though virtual, to collaborate with other entities, individuals, companies, and to get really good insight into ADB as a whole. So I'd encourage all of the participants here to track ADB's website and look out for the annual fair. The pandemic has presented us with multiple challenges on personal and professional IT levels. One of the positives from the pandemic, though, are events such as this, which really have enabled us to reach out to the private sector and key partners far more effectively than we were able to in the past. And this is something that I expect to long continue after the pandemic is over. The in-person events, yes, of course, they are valuable for networking and building relationships, but these virtual webinars and seminars are also something that I see as a positive. Okay, at today's events, you'll be hearing from sector leads in two very important sectors to ADB, education and urban. Education, as the need for investment in social infrastructure is increasingly important, and urban, as Asia's cities are growing at a very, very fast pace, and they need to be efficient, they need to be green, they need to be livable. So two very, very important areas for ADB that I expect to continue to grow in the volumes of our investment. And there'll be more on that from my colleagues later. Our aim through these seminars is to continue our collaboration with business communities around the world, despite the challenges caused by the pandemic. And I really do hope that you'll find this interesting and useful and a tool to identify opportunities and hopefully win some for yourselves. So on that note, I will hand back to our hosts with my thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for your remarks. Okay, now we arrive at the session we've been waiting for, the presentation from resource speakers and Q&A session. And this session will be led by Mr. Gigi Pribadi, a sub-coordinator for bilateral cooperation of LKPP. Have a fruitful discussion. Over to you, Mas Gigi.
Okay, I hope my sound's clear. Okay, thank you, Ms. Ferisa, izin Ibu Direktur. Thank you, Ms. Ferisa. Good morning. Selamat pagi, Bapak dan Ibu yang terhormat. Today, I am Gigi Pribadi, officer in charge for bilateral cooperation of NPPA, will be the moderator for our discussion on business opportunities with the Asian Development Bank. But before we start the discussion, I would like to remind Ibu dan Bapak about translation feature in bahasa. So, untuk Ibu dan Bapak yang baru saja bergabung, kami menyediakan penerjemahan secara langsung yang Ibu dan Bapak dapat akses dengan cara mengklik tombol globe icon di bawah atau di samping Q&A, di mana Ibu dan Bapak bisa pilih bahasa yang diinginkan. Okay, without further ado, let me read our discussion agenda for today. There will be 4 presenters. Mr. Joris van Ete, he will deliver about business opportunities in urban development sector. And then also Mr. Brajesh Pan. He will deliver about the business opportunities in education sector. And then Ms. Jenny Chu, she will explain about the ADB procurement system. And then Mr. Jaka Sumanta, he will share on his experience winning ADB consultation project. All of them are very competent speakers. We are lucky for having them during our discussion today. Okay, then there will be an open forum at the end of our discussion session, but please don't hesitate to raise questions during presentation time by typing on the question and answer box below. Bapak dan Ibu yang terhormat, you may use bahasa to raise or respond the questions since we provide interpreters. Just don't be hesitate. As a start, I would like to allow Mr. Joris van Etten, a senior urban development specialist from the ADB. He will give a presentation regarding business opportunities on urban development sector. Outposted to the ADB Indonesia Resident Mission, Mr. Joris oversees processing and administration of all future and ongoing urban projects in Indonesia. Prior to moving to Indonesia, Mr. Joris was with ADB Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department and coordinated ADB Smart Cities work and helped draft ADB Livable Cities Priority Plan. Okay, I think that's enough. Over to you, Mr. Joris van Etten. Thank you.
Selamat pagi, good morning, Mas Gigi. Makasih banyak.
Pagi, Pak.
Oke, saya salam sejahtera untuk semua. Saya akan pakai bahasa Inggrisnya untuk deliver my recommendations and suggestions, ya kan? Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody here online. I see more than 200 people online, which is great. Thank you for your interest in working with ADB. In the urban sector, of course, we all know that Indonesia has many challenges, but also amazing opportunities. Actually, for those who want to win kudo points, why don't you write in the chat here which city this picture was taken? So whoever can write in the chat that first one, which city that is, they'll get kudos from me. But this shows that, of course, yes, of course, Malang ini Pak Indah already have the first one. So, and this indeed shows how, with simple measures, actually, this particular kampung was able to attract quite a lot of visitors and make it really more livable. It's still a slum area, yeah, but it's an area where people are at least before COVID, of course, many tourists were coming, and as a result, of course, local economic development, Kampung Pelangi, wonderful, where many people were coming to join and make pictures there. But next slide. ADB is not into painting and beautifying slum areas, but what we are in is trying to see to what extent we can support Indonesia's rapid urbanization process and make it a sustainable process. So as we know now, we have about 150 million people living in cities, and so still a very substantial part of these city residents are poor, don't have access to basic services, are employed in the informal sectors, and still some face open defecation. So there's a lot of opportunity. Minta tolong klik lagi. There's a lot of opportunity for investments to increase the amount of access to services. Next, please. You can keep on clicking here on this slide. So what is it that we do is we work mainly to next. So what here you see, I make, okay, this is the problem, of course, when not controlling the slides myself, yeah. But what I showed there earlier is that one particular size of Jakarta compared to, for example, the amount of people who still have lack of access to basic services, 30 juta, so 3 times Jakarta. Next slide, please. Some areas where we support is water supply, road connectivity, housing and neighborhood upgrading, irrigation modernization, smart cities, flood risk management, solid waste management, private sector investment in technology. And of course, I will focus mainly on some more urban focused projects. But this is in infrastructure development. This is really where a lot of our work goes, and that's mainly, of course, infrastructure development with BUP area, with the Ministry of Public Works and Housing. Mainly, of course, access to basic services, water supply, sanitation, and then also upgrading of houses. Next slide, please. One key area where we're really interested in is what we call source to tap approach, where so ADB is a bank, and the government of Indonesia is one of our member countries, of course, borrowing for larger infrastructure projects. But we are always very interested to see to what extent our borrowing can leverage additional private sector investment. Because if you look at what is needed in terms of investments in Indonesia in the urban sector, and what we, for example, as ADB can provide to the government, or even when you look at the budget of Ministry of Public Works, smartly to leverage additional financing from the private sector. And the water supply sector is a very good example from that. So, of course, you have an intake for the raw, and then the raw water transmission pipeline. You then have a water treatment plant and a reservoir and a transmission pipeline. And then downstream, you have the distribution network and the actual household connections, which normally is managed, of course, by the PDAMs, by the local water utilities. So one of the things we as ADB are interested in is from each of these three areas, whether it's the raw water supply, the treatment, or the distribution, where is it that we can assist strategically? And where can our support leverage most private sector involvement? So that doesn't always mean that we provide loans, but we can also provide support to public-private partnerships. And we look at ways to enhance the creditworthiness of local governments to enhance the distribution systems. So this shows a little bit that we are trying to really look at the entire scope and see where we strategically can provide support. Next slide, please. Another area where we are very keen in. So, of course, government of Indonesia can borrow from a lot of facilities, including ADB. So what really we try to, of course, set ourselves apart by indicating and showcasing how we as a lending agency can provide added value. And that, among others, includes access to Earth observation or technology in general. So here I show you some pictures of the Earth observation we are using in Palu, Central Sulawesi, as part of the reconstruction of the water supply network and reconstruction of some university there, to really understand still the movement. So the first top two pictures are about further terrain deformation pre and post the tsunami liquefaction, and which were caused by the earthquake in September 2018, and then also the reconstruction monitoring. So how can we help the government of Indonesia using smart technologies to enhance A, the design of engineering solutions, and B, monitoring monitor the reconstruction. Next slide, please. Another element of example where we look at how technology can help us. Of course, we are often asked to support the engineering design, or in this case of a sewage system in Pontianak. And because of the COVID pandemic, we could not go, of course, to the field that much. So we worked with the consultancy teams to see to what extent you could use Google Street View to assess traffic conditions, to assess properties and identify household connections, and to also better understand particularly household connections in low-income areas. So again, to what extent can you link new technology solutions so that we can enhance delivery of services? Next slide, please. And then lastly, of course, it's we're doing a lot of work in the smart city solutions. And that's, of course, all about data and how you can overlay data to better understand the city. So this is a picture of maybe somebody knows another question for you guys. Which city is depicted here on the map on the computer screen? If you can recognize that, I would be very very surprised. But maybe there are some people who can even just from the map see which city it is. But what we're basically looking there at this city, which I will not yet disclose. No, not Kalimantan Barat, but at the city where we disclose is we overlaid, for example, COVID pandemic levels and access to basic services, and we were able to clearly show there's a linkages between lack of access to and yes, Sitian, indeed, Makassar, very good. So this is the city of Makassar, indeed, Makassar, South Sulawesi. So where we looked at helping to understand, helping the city to understand how interlinkages between access of basic services and the relationship with COVID, spread of COVID pandemic. And there's a number of other things where we can layer data. So it's not only about collecting data, storing data, but also interpreting data, and then more importantly, using those data to actually make proper decisions for future development. Next slide, please. So this is our portfolio of ongoing and future projects. We try to consolidate it a little bit more. And of course, for you, because Indonesia is such a big country, and of course, for you, it's mainly of interest of what it is that we are planning to do. So as you can see, among others, again, there, yeah. So Makassar is for us an important city for us to experiment with a lot of activities. Please, next slide. One thing we do very much is to see to what extent our projects, of course, contribute to the RPGMN, the National Medium-Term Development Plan. And here, this is an overview of how these projects we are currently involved in, or future projects, how they are aligned with the priority projects of the government. Because of course, it's in the end the government who borrows from us mainly for our sovereign funding. Of course, when it comes down to private sector operations and public-private partnerships, it's a bit different. But please go ahead, next slide. Yeah, so one of the key elements we are interested in, we think water utilities, PDAMs, are extremely important to enhance the access to water supply, clean water supply. So we are really keen to work with selected utilities. So far, we've looked at Palembang and Banjarmasin, but we would love to work with more, and then really work through their business plans, see what possibilities there are to enhance their credit worthiness, and then enhance their ability to borrow for their investments, which are so much needed. Next slide, please. Another area where we're interested in and where we have our biggest ongoing projects is in sanitation. So currently we're doing Makassar, Jambi, and Pekanbaru wastewater treatment systems, but we are now preparing projects for Pontianak and Semarang, and that's going to be very massive, 310 million. So these are large projects which need to be prepared and implemented. Next one. And then another project we are preparing is the livable settlement investment project, which is a bit more integrated, and where we look at different elements to enhance livability and really transform cities within the region in Indonesia. So to improve access to water, sanitation, but also open spaces, improved health, solid waste management, fire prevention, etc., etc. So everything what makes a city or an area more livable. Thank you. Next slide. So thank you very much. Get in touch with me if you have any questions, and I hope this gives you a snapshot of some of the areas we are looking forward to working on with the government of Indonesia, and of course with Indonesian companies to deliver enhanced livability in Indonesian cities. Thank you very much. Over to you, Pak Gigin.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Yoris, for the heartwarming and interesting presentations. one thing that I note is how important are various project ya Pak ya in urban development as more and more people in Indonesia are migrating into and living in cities. Ibu dan Bapak yang terhormat, please feel free to type your question into the question and answer box below. We will continue to the next speaker. The next presenter will be Mr. Brajesh Pant, the Chief of Education Sector Group at the ADB. He will present about the business opportunities with the ADB in education sector. Mr. Brajesh Pant has over 25 years of progressive experience as project team leader and chief of the education sector group, EDSG in ADB. He leads the preparation of the EDSG work plan and facilitate collaboration across sector and thematic group in ADB with external partners. He earned his master and doctorate degree in education administration, planning and social policy from Harvard University. Mr. Brajesh Pant, the time is yours. Please, sir.
Thank you very much, Pagi. Good morning,
Pagi.
everyone. It is a pleasure to join this webinar today. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So ADB supports all levels of education from early childhood through higher education. I will highlight the challenges and priorities in education in light of ADB's 2030 strategy and talk about the cooperation between ADB and our government counterparts and highlight ADB's portfolio. Next slide, please. ADB's developing member countries face mainly two challenges, and all of us know that: slow progress on foundational learning despite remarkable progress in access and participation, and skills mismatches despite increasing levels of educational attainment. The graph on the left side of this slide shows that most of the people with low reading proficiency are in the Asia Pacific. The right side of the slide shows that the Asia Pacific has greater difficulty in filling vacancies. Next slide, please. So we know that COVID has had monumental disruptions in the education sector, and unless urgent actions are taken, the learning crisis may turn into a catastrophe, according to Save Our Future Coalition. In order to reimagine a new normal in education, we need to draw lessons from the pandemic. First, it revealed inherent inequities existing in the education systems, that the same students that were lagging behind are at a greater risk of lagging behind further due to inequitable access to internet and related support mechanisms. Multi-channel of learning is important depending on low-tech, mid-tech, and high-tech situations. Second, digital contents and assessments are not readily available for effective distance learning at such a scale. Third, teachers are not prepared to manage distance learning. Fourth, the focus of learning shifted from school to home to parents to support the children. This reinforces the importance of learning not only in school, but outside of school, and particularly in home. Fifth, EdTech solutions that were more confined to private education suddenly got much wider acceptance in public education, thereby underscoring the importance of public-private partnerships for such applications. Finally, it has also become very clear that distance learning and EdTech solutions are not meant to replace face-to-face learning, but to complement through blended learning to improve teaching and learning based on research and data generated by such approaches. This is the time to rethink and reimagine education. Next slide, please. Let me highlight some emerging trends in education. As I noted earlier, the main concern is that many students are not learning. According to World Bank's report on learning poverty, globally, over 50% 10-year-old cannot read simple story. This is now called the learning crisis, and this needs to be addressed urgently, since weak foundational skills will carry over at higher level and affect learners' ability to acquire higher level skills. What is important to rethink is that the same strategy that has helped to expand access may not work to improve learning, since improvements in learning require mindset change, deeper understanding about how children learn, strong support to teachers to become motivated instructional leaders, and ecosystem approach that ensures life cycle and whole of government approach. It is also important to go back to the basics to strengthen foundational skills such as literacy and numeracy. In order to develop self-directed lifelong learners, it is also important to develop soft skills and digital skills, which are now called the 21st century skills. Education technology such as online blended learning is very promising in improving the content and delivery of better quality education and in preparing students for future jobs. But we need to build evidence on this. This is very important. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Learning and equity are central to education reform. ADB projects generally include three components. First, quality and relevance to cover teacher quality, curriculum, assessment, and teaching and learning materials. Second, equitable access to education covers school construction, stipends, and school feeding programs, conditional cash transfers, and special provisions. And third, education management and governance to support financing, school management, and overall governance, including monitoring and evaluation. More resources are needed, but better quality funding is equally important. Next slide, please. Finland is globally well known for its high quality, innovative education system. We want to learn from such systems and to draw on some of its features to support our developing member countries. One such example is the sharing of experience on STEAM education, STEAM meaning science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, from the city of Turku, and how this is being implemented through a whole of government approach at all levels of education. This is the type of best practice we are keen to draw on in areas like teacher quality, integrated curriculum development, blended extracurricular activities to make education more relevant to real life situation, and so on. Next slide, please. EdTech solutions, particularly regarding the new generation adaptive learning, have emerged as powerful tools to help scale up equity and learning. We have seen a surge in distance learning during the pandemic, which has accelerated the use of EdTech solutions. In this slide, our emphasis is to take an ecosystem approach and take and look at 5 interrelated pillars, such as government policies, digital infrastructure covering connectivity, devices, and digital materials, teachers and schools pillar, parents and students to support home learning, and the role of public-private partnership in the provision of innovative EdTech solutions. We also take into account low, mid, and high-tech contexts to employ different solutions for the short, medium, and longer term. We also emphasize the 3 E's: equitable to better integrate girls, women, and disadvantaged groups; enduring to drive results based on evidence-informed policies and reforms; and efficient to make education services more aligned and more effective. Next slide, please. This slide is to emphasize cross-sector collaboration, which is a major focus of ADB's education strategy and part of strategy 2030. Since education is the biggest enabler, its role is crucial to realize all SDGs. For example, there is now heightened discussion on education and climate change. Similarly, digitalization and providing digital skills, and supporting priority growth sectors such as agriculture, or looking at medical schools and so on, which I'll have more examples later on. Next slide, please. This slide shows the lending trend in education by subsector and region. Overall, the lending to education has continued to increase over time, and the lending pipeline looks quite robust. South Asia and Southeast Asia regions have the highest share of lending, while the Central West region is expected to grow in the next few years. Tibet has the highest share of lending, while higher education is also growing. We expect the demand for school education to remain strong, particularly given the need to universalize secondary education. Education is one of the priority sectors in ADB's overall portfolio. Due to the pandemic, education lending decreased a little bit in 2020, while the overall lending increased substantially due to the emergency support needed for health, social protection, and economic recovery. Overall, the lending target for the education sector is 6 to 10% by 2024. Next slide, please. Now let me get into some examples. This slide provides examples of emerging innovative projects at all levels of education. Our developing member countries are looking for innovative approaches to improve learning and employability. As I highlighted earlier, here are some examples. Digital and high-tech agriculture universities in Bangladesh, use of high technology in training equipment and international partnerships in India, skills for elderly care and early childhood education in the People's Republic of China, skills for health workforce in Vietnam, blended learning in higher education in Bangladesh and Indonesia, regional repository of ICT-based materials for education in the Pacific region, centers of excellence in Tibet in different countries. Next slide, please. So next 3 slides are about our pipeline projects, and it shows that it's quite significant, particularly in 2022 and 2023. We are still building up a portfolio for 2024, which is growing and will be firmed up as we move, make progress. But the point is, this provides list of different types of projects in different countries and shows also the emerging new trend and also growth trajectory in certain areas. Can you go to the final slide, please? With a list of contacts. Next one. And next one. Yeah, this one. So just before that. So this provides a list of contacts for the education team across ADB, director's name, portfolio specialists, who coordinate projects across different departments, and also from my team, which looks after overall coordination. So this is the final slide, and I'll be happy to provide clarifications on any queries and also further interactions as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prajesh. Thank you for the clear explanation and also comprehensive explanation. Also, this is interesting on how the education system will respond to post-pandemic environment, and notably the education project needed to support post-pandemic society. Okay, Ibu dan Bapak yang terhormat, please feel free to type your questions or propose your queries into the question and answer box below to explore more about the education opportunities with Mr. Prajesh. Okay, so we are going to the next speaker because we have limited time. Ms. Jenny Chu, procurement specialist of PPAD. Yeah, okay. She will explain about the ADB procurement framework, procedures, bidding strategies, and how to find, this is very important, business opportunities on ADB website. Ms. Jenny Chu is the procurement focal for ADB sovereign operation projects in Cambodia and sustainable infrastructure, urban and social sector, as well as public management, finance, and regional cooperation division in PRC. She is a chartered professional engineer and an admitted barrister and solicitor of the High Court of New Zealand. Okay, Ms. Jenny Chu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gigi. Selamat pagi, everyone. Over the next sessions, I will mainly cover, next slide, please, a quick overview of the portfolios of procurement in ADB with further detail building on what Jeff's mentioned before, in particular, some key statistics on how Indonesian consultants, suppliers, and contractors doing, and an update on the ADB procurement framework, some pointers around our procurement of good works and consulting services, and key considerations that hopefully will help you with your business planning. And also how to find information on business opportunities under ADB projects and opportunities related to supporting COVID-19 response. Next slide, please. ADBs operate in a lot of different countries in Asia and Pacific. Next slide. And comprising of a growing sovereign portfolio as well as non-sovereign portfolio. And you can see the trend of some of the stats between the two years, 2019 and last year, across different sector. Next slide. And also the amount of investment is generally also going up, especially with the support we are focusing on in combating the global pandemic response as well. Next slide. And next slide. One thing probably to highlight is that with ADB's strategy 2030, there's 7 operational priorities areas, and these operational priorities area will influence on how we incorporate the different focus in projects planning and also implementations. Having some awareness of these priorities might help you align with your business planning process, and also finding the right opportunity in consulting services support in particular as well. Next slide. So every year, ADBs provide loan grant and technical assistance to fund projects and activities in our developing member countries, and serve $1 billion in contract to procure good works and consulting services. And most of these contracts are generally awarded on the basis of an open competitive bidding process, and that is either through an internationally advertised process or nationally advertised process, or used to be called international competition or nationally competitive process before the reform of procurement framework, which I will touch on later on. And you can see the next few slides are how the top different suppliers, consultants, and contractors are over the whole of ADB portfolio. In terms of good supply, Indonesia is amongst the top 5 in some of the years over the last 4 years. Next slide. And it's also doing quite well in works as well, with it being placed 4th in 2019 in the top works contracts by member state. Next slide. And last year, Indonesian firms collectively ranked 4th in the amount of consultant services award by ADB as well. Next slide. In terms of top group supplies by the amount, these are the top 5 suppliers of goods from 2017 to 2020. Next slide. And these are the top 5 contractors for works over the last 4 years as well. And you can see the amount of contracts as well as the total contract award value for each of the respective contractor. And this slide is the top consultant by amount. And again, you can see the spread of the firm and also the amount that they have been awarded to as well. Next slide. In terms of top 5 contractors and suppliers from Indonesia across the different aspect of ADB portfolio, these are the top 5 contractors and suppliers for procurement of good works and related services. For contractors and suppliers from Indonesia, there's over 35,000 contracts with over 26 billion that have been awarded since 1966, and that is quite a good achievement. Next slide. In terms of consultant services, our procurement of consultant totaled just in 2019 over 750 million, and in 2020 over 730 million, and that is also a significant amount of opportunity present for you to consider participating in as well. In terms of consultant from Indonesia, there was over 4,400 contracts with over 850 million that have been awarded since 1966. And you can see here, there's also not only just for firm consultant, there's a lot of opportunities for individual consultants as well. Next slide. And all of these information, if you're interested in finding more about operations procurement statistics, a team recently launched a procurement statistic dashboard, and you can further filtering out information for your information based on country, based on sectors and modality in different years as well. And I encourage you to have a look at that information. It's available also on our website, and I will point out where you might be able to find the link to it through the operations and procurement page. So next slide. So all in all, there's many opportunities in terms of procurement of good works and services in ADB, either through ADB administered procurement, as well as through procurement that is administered through our borrowers, and Indonesia is going very strong at that, and by taking part in working with ADB, I guess you have opportunity not only in Indonesia, but also you also have opportunity to support the development and create opportunities for your business in other of the ADB members country as well. Especially you can see the operations is generally growing quite rapidly. And I'll touch on later on that all of the procurement and our work is underpinned by internationally accepted fair and transparent procurement procedure and a strong focus on integrity oversight as well. Next slide. So you might ask, where are the good sort of point of entry and when we might need support from consultants, from supply of good, or from contractors in ADB project lifecycle. So there's many opportunities for you to get involved. And generally speaking, in ADB project lifecycle, there's opportunities for consultant to support the country level planning through the partnership strategy development or regional studies. Also, after that country level framework is established, there is the planning of individual projects, and the a project planning stage, in a conception stage, in preparation stage, we will require support of individuals and or firm consultants to help with these studies and various due diligence process. Then after the loan and grants been approved and a project is into its implementation stage, then the procurement will be undertaken by the borrowers, and that means that you have a lot of opportunities to get involved supporting consultants services, but also providing good equipment as well as supporting the civil contract works for the borrower as well. When the contract works, when the project is completed, then ADB would also would undertake evaluation of the projects to conclude the life cycle and fit into the next round of review and studies. And at that point, we also require support from various sectors and country specialists in consultant services as well. So there's many opportunities that you can get involved with, and we will go into where you can find those business opportunities later on. Next slide. And these different opportunities exist in the form of good works, consultant services, and non-consultant services. And one thing to probably bear in mind is that based on the type of opportunities, there's different procurement process and practice to follow, but all of that is underpinned by some fundamental procurement principles. Next slide. And that sort of becomes a driving force of procurement reform recently, and you can see that the current ADB procurement structure has a new procurement framework system and also an ongoing previous framework system in parallel. The left-hand side blue documents that shown on the slides are ADB's procurement policy and procurement regulations for ADB borrowers. And these are applicable for projects with concept papers on or after 1st of July 2017. With all the projects with concept papers approved before then the previous orange and green book that you might be familiar with will apply. Next slide. I've touched on the procurement principles before, and one of the key changes in the procurement reform with the new procurement framework is the stronger emphasis on making sure that procurement arrangement deliver quality and value for money for the project, to make sure that it is fit for purpose rather than just having a fixed sort of threshold per se. Next slide. I'll now go on to some key consideration and recap on our procurement process with roles and responsibility, and then some of the key resources for procurement of goods and works, and then consultant services. So with procurement in ADBs, largely there's three groups of players: the borrower executive agency or implementation agencies. There's consultants, contractors, or suppliers of goods, and ADB, and we all play different roles and have different responsibility in this procurement. Procurement can generally be undertaken by either ADB, and that's generally in the planning stage of a project, and mostly in consultant services, or the procurement can be administered by our borrowers through its EA or IA in project management unit or project implementation unit. In the implementation stage of projects, and this majority of the procurement in terms of amount will be through these loaned or grant procurement administered by our borrowers, and it covers good works and services. While the a huge amount of procurement is administered through our borrowers, ADB also has a fiduciary due diligence role to review the process of procurement to make sure that it complies with our policy and regulations. And that sort of provide an extra assurance on the integrity of the process and to make sure that procurement delivers quality outcome. And our general preferred options of procurement is through open competitive biddings, and is generally also involve assessment and evaluation of both technical and financial bid elements. Next slide. Through the procurement reform, we've also updated and add to our procurement toolkit to support the process. And one of that is the procurement document. There's a new bidding document that's been developed for procurement of information technology, product and services, design and build arrangement, as well as non-consultant services. And all of these new revised standard bidding document available on ADB website, which we'll go on to later on. Next slide. And we've also introduced new procurement method to widen the toolkit and increase visibility for the borrower and also ADB to use. Some of that include framework agreement for consulting services, the arrangement for procurement of high-level technology, electronic reverse auction, and also considerations for fragile, conflict-affected, and emergency situation. Next slide. Some of the key pointers when you are preparing for bid for procurement of goods and works is really making sure all of the requirement in the bidding document is adhered to ensure that you provide a completed bid. And I think it's always, for me, seems to be a shame that some of the bidders are rejected just purely based on not having all the right information together. So please make sure that the bid is signed by a person who is authorized entry and provide the bid security or bid securing declaration. And with the right amount of the bid security and the valid validity period. And also all of the other supporting documents such as JV agreement, any of the audit financial statement or past performance certificate or test report that's required. If you miss out any of these information, the fundamental basic information, the firm might not be able to go through to the next stage of evaluation, and sometimes it's just a bit of a shame if that's the only reason. So yeah, if you have got any questions on these when you're putting your bid and proposal together, yeah, please feel free to ask the questions through the channel that is in the bidding document, and please also note the query deadline with regard to that as well. And another point just to highlight is if there is any concern or questions around conflict of interest, then also make sure you disclose that in advance so that the right mitigation measures and response can be arranged in a timely manner. And lastly, as mentioned before, there's the technical element and there's the financial element of evaluation. So please make sure that all the technical information in the technical bid and in the financial information in the financial bid to not mix them together. Otherwise, that could be also another ground for rejection, and that will be also quite unfortunate if that's the only case. So hopefully that some of the key points that to recap to help you prepare your bid further. Next slide. And another key aspect of our procurement framework is the strong oversight on integrity-related measures, and that is governed by our integrity principles and guidelines, and also guidelines related to anti-corruption issue as well. If there is any concern or any things that you want to share or report to ADB on this, there is a specific web page and contact email that you can go to, and we will include that in the final page of the slide here that you can access later on. Next slide. So now I'll just go through some of the key aspects of consultant services as part of the ADB procurement system. Next slide. The kind of consultants that that we procure in our projects can be divided into consulting firms, individual consultants, and staff consultants. And in particular, they're either through technical assistant, loan to grant, or ADB staffing budget in the case of staff consultant. And if it is technical assistant, it's mostly administered by ADB, as in the contract is with ADB. If it is loan and grant, and it's mostly administered by the borrower, where the contract is with the borrower. And the recruitment may be national or international, and that is through both the firms and individual consultant. One key aspect in the recent procurement reform to increase flexibility in eligibility is that for recruitment of consultant firm, as long as the firm is legally incorporated in any of the ADB's members countries, then the team members of the firm, in terms of the expertise and nationality of the team member, can be from any country, subject to certain international UN sanctions arrangement provision that's been made. However, in terms of individual consultant, the individual consultant needs to come from, needs to be a citizen of an ADB member country. Next slide, please. Sorry, it seems like the formatting is probably shifted a little bit from how it's been set up originally. So the slide here is intended to show you the different steps for ADB firm consultants recruitment. So it started off with preparations of a detailed requirement of what we're looking for in the firm. The scope of work, the duration, the location, the deliverable, the payment method, and the key experience and qualification that is required of the expert. And these are in the form of terms of reference, TOR. Then this information is included in the advertisement, and then the advertisement is mostly posted in the ADB consultant management system, and then it gets shortlisted by the party that undertaking the procurement, either ADB or our borrowers. Then the shortlisted consultant will be invited to submit a response to the request for proposal. And based on the selection method, which we'll go on to later on, the proposal will consist of technical proposals and a financial proposal, and they will be evaluated separately. Then the overall first rank firm, taking into account the technical score and financial evaluation result. Again, it depends on the selection method, will be invited to take part in a negotiation. And if the negotiation is successful, then a contract will be awarded, and you move on to the contract management process. Next slide, please. The different selection method here is a spread of a range of methods from direct contracting, least cost selection, fixed budget selection, and also quality-based selection or quality cost-based selection. And sorry, CQS is a consultant qualification selection. I think in the slide that you want to request to be shared, I'm sure the formatting will be refixed so that it's more legible. So the range of selection method that's available for our procurement agent to use is it can either be purely focusing on cost, or with a stronger focus on quality, or mixture of both. So the preferred default method of selection by ADB is quality and cost based selection, which take into account a weighted approach of quality and also cost. And that integrated scoring will determine the overall evaluation. I think the slide has disappeared. Oh, thank you, and thanks for fixing the formatting as well. So these are the different options you can choose for recruiting the firms. Next slide, please. In terms of general pointers for our approach to consulting contracts, here's something for you to consider. There's so much opportunity you can get involved with. So for the newcomers, you might want to identify the suitable entry point of what you want to target and look to build the expertise in those location, region, or sectors, and considered whether individual consultant opportunity or as part of a team or through a firm is more suitable for your circumstances. And understand your client expectations well, and our organizers is a good organizations to find out further information in Indonesia, and our other speakers provided some information in terms of our pipeline of works in the education sectors as well. And in terms of other strategy, you might consider leveraging your experience through partnering with other institution or consultant team to add value through these sort of partnership or joint ventures, including a mix of maybe local international firms. If you're looking to get into other market outside of Indonesia, then you might want to understand the commercial aspect of setting up business and doing business in other countries as well, such as tax. And also if other external specialists, be it national specialists in other countries or international specialists, might strengthen your team's overall attractiveness. And if you've got any question in the consultant recruitment process, there should be contact information of the person in charge from the procuring party that you can ask questions, and that will be something that will encourage you to do to get those clarification. Next slide. Another aspect is that you can request for debriefing and also raise complaint in ADB's procurement process. And feedback both to our bidders and consultants, as well as getting feedback from our party of interest, are very important to continuously improve the integrity and quality of procurement. And hence these features are also an important aspect of our procurement system. For debriefing, if you're next, going back to the slide before, please. The slide before, please. For unsuccessful bidders of any consultant work or also procurement of good and works, you might request debriefing from the procuring entities, and that is either ADB or our borrowers. If you're not satisfied with the explanation given, you might submit a complaint. And this is something that we encourage you to do because they're an excellent opportunity for improving your future bid or proposal submissions. In terms of complaints, the bidders and consultant may file a complaint directly with ADB or may copy ADB on a correspondence with the borrowers. Depending on the stage of the process of procurement, we will handle the procurement complaint differently. And of course, we encourage you to in the first instance for borrower administered procurement, raise any of your concern and complaint with the borrowers through the contact information in the bidding document. If you would like to raise any operations procurement related complaints to ADB, you can submit it through an online form on our website. And if you've got any concern related to integrity related issues, there's also the link in the bottom of the slide that you can go into to report the matter as well. Next slide, please. Then the last part of my presentation is how to find information about business opportunity on our website. And there's a number of areas that you might want to look into, which is business center or our operations procurement page, or the project and tender page of ADB. And all of that can be accessed through our ADB homepage under Work With Us in the circle that is indicated. Next slide. In the ADB business centers, their information on the various how-to in procurement process, profile for consultant, borrowers, and others related stakeholders on the relevant policy, regulations, guidance, and also link to bidding document, request proposals, and related form as well. Next slide. And through the business center page or through the home page, there is also a link to operational procurement one page. It is also a quick reference with access to project and tender page, which has information on various procurement plan or project information that could give you more information about a specific project. And then also it has the information on the two different, the new procurement framework, and then also the previous 2013 and 2015 guideline and related staff instructions or project administration instruction as well. And then also on this page, it contains some tutorials that you can work through at your own pace on some of the key features of ADB procurement, new procurement framework. So it's also another good place to have a look if you want to understand a procurement process better. Next slide. And another good place to have a look at, and this page is project and tender page, and you can have access to this page through any of the two previous pages. There should be a reference there as well. And this page contains information. You can filter them based on countries, based on sectors, and types of arrangement on different projects in ADB portfolios, and that give you a bit of a sense of the arrangement of the specific projects in terms of its objective, the scope, the arrangement. I also under document tab of any projects that you look into, you can look at its procurement plan, which should give you an idea of what are the procurement, the nature of procurement, the expected advertisement date of different contracts. And if you're interested in any available tenders that are out or that's being completed, you can go to the tenders tab and also find out the tender information as well. Next slide, please. And in terms of consultant recruitment information, the consultant management system, CMS, is a good portal that essential for your information. You can register yourself as a consultant in this portal. Next slide. And then you can access to these consultant service recruitment notice, which is the advertisement of the different consultant assignment, be it individual consultant or consultant firm recruitment. They're all listed there. Next slide. And we also encourage you to register for alert to receive further information on any of our procurement. And you can also do that through the CMS system or good and work notice as shown on the slide here. Next slide. We've created also a new web page to highlight our effort to support COVID-19 response, and this is COVID-19 business outreach page, contains some relevant information on our guidance on dealing with COVID-19 related situation in consultant assignment. It contains information on some of the expertise the ADB are looking for to help with the response, and some statistics on our recent procurement effort to support COVID-19 response, such as a procurement of medical equipment, PPE gear, and the status of this procurement as well. Next slide. And in the CMS portal, if you're particularly interested in supporting and getting involved in COVID-19 response assignment, you can filter the assignment or advertisement through the COVID-19 related assignment filter, and you can just click yes, and all the COVID-19 related consultant assignment will be shown up through the search. Next slide. So finally, this is a quick list of LinkedIn network that you can join as ADB Consultant Network or ADB Supplier Network that you might be interested in. And also there's the ADB Business Center LinkedIn page where we will highlight some of the key information there from time to time, which we encourage you to follow as well. If you've got any questions, I'm sure our team's available here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenny Chu, for the comprehensive explanation. For participants, one thing that should we note, the ADB procurement regulation is a bit different to our national procurement regulations, including the SPT, the integrity rules, and etc. Just ensure to adhere to the ADB regulation before submitting a bid. I think, as always, Ibu dan Bapak yang terhormat, please don't hesitate to fill your questions into the Q&A box below. No need to worry for every questions. We will not be able to answer today. We will reply to each of the questions by email. So just post it there. So just post it there, and then we will respond it. Okay. The next sessions. The next presenter is Mr. Jaka Sumanta, President Director of PT Kogas. He will deliver his experience on winning ADB consultation projects. Pak Jaka has an extensive experience as a consultant with the ADB and any other international organizations in various projects for more than 15 years, especially with the expertise in PPP and procurement. Okay, without further ado, over to you, Pak Jaka, please.
Baik, suara saya terdengar?
Well done, Pak.
Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. I asked Pak Gigi, should I present in English or Bahasa? Pak Gigi said that just in Bahasa, Pak Jaka. So I think because most the audience is our friends, the same profession, same association, which is in Indo. So I think it's better for me to presenting bahasa. Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, terutama selamat pagi Pak Joris, long time no see Pak Joris, Pak Brajes, kemudian Ibu Jenny, dan saya lihat tadi di participants ada senior-senior kami, ada Ketua Ingindo Pak Peter, selamat pagi Pak Peter, juga Ketua Ingindo DKI Bapak Imam, dan beberapa senior kami yang lain yang tidak bisa kami sebutkan satu demi satu. Izinkan pagi ini kami sharing pengalaman mengelola, memenangkan satu proyek, tetapi saya akan mengambil contoh satu proyek yang barangkali bisa untuk menjadi pelajaran bagi kita semua, yaitu TA atau Technical Assistant. Kalau kita ketahui, dulu itu ada 4 Technical Assistant, ada Project Preparation Technical Assistant, kemudian ada Policy and Advisory, kemudian ada Capacity Development atau CDTA, ada Research and Development, RDTA. Kalau yang sekarang ini sepertinya sudah dijadikan 2 kelompok. Jadi technical assistant yang terkait dengan project itu dikelompokkan menjadi transaction technical assistant. Kemudian yang tidak terkait itu disebut sebagai knowledge and support TA atau KSTA. Jadi ada 2 kelompok itu, dan menurut kami yang kami akan paparkan ini adalah kelompok CDTA dulu, kalau sekarang adalah TRTA. Kami sampaikan tadi pengantar tentang siapa saya. Saya kelihatannya diperkenalkan over. Saya bukan Presiden Director dari PT Kogas. Saya saat ini sudah pensiun dari PT Kogas, jadi ini atas izin dari direksi PT Kogas yang sekarang, saya memaparkan dan menyampaikan bahwa ini adalah pengalaman company kami, pengalaman dari PT Kogas Triap Konsultan. Next. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kami sebelum menyampaikan bagaimana proses, bagaimana suka duka dan lain-lain, kami ingin cerita tentang proyeknya sendiri. Jadi yang gambar besar ini adalah proyeknya, kemudian yang gambar kecil itu adalah technical assistant-nya. Proyek besarnya adalah EDB Loan 3123 Inno. Loan ini adalah di-manage atau dipimpin oleh Pak Yoris yang tadi paparan yang pertama. Proyeknya adalah Metropolitan Sanitation Management Investment Project atau MSMIP. Ini proyek untuk meningkatkan layanan air limbah perkotaan. Jadi ini sektor perkotaan. Kemudian melalui proyek ini akan didorong kota-kota yang padat itu untuk memiliki instalasi pengolahan air limbah dan juga instalasi pengolahan lumpur tinja, tetapi dengan cara pipanisasi, jadi menuju ke masing-masing toilet kita, ya, karena kita mengetahui saat ini sebagian besar kita menggunakan septic tank dalam rumah kita masing-masing, dan ada pemahaman yang keliru. Ini sekalian saya ingin promosikan pemahaman septic tank yang benar, ya. Orang-orang tua kita selalu mengatakan septic tank kita ini bagus sekali, Nak. Sejak Bapak buat sampai dengan sekarang itu belum pernah kita sedot dan tidak apa-apa. Terus kita pakai, tidak pernah kita sedot. Itu septic tanknya bagus. Itu mohon maaf, itu pemahaman yang keliru. Sekali lagi itu pemahaman yang keliru, karena bagus menurut pandangan Bapak itu, tetapi itu adalah mencemari air tanah kita, dan sehingga air tanah itu akan banyak mengandung bakteri E. coli. Yang benar adalah septic tank itu harus disedot secara rutin. Ya, ada yang setahun sekali, ada yang 2 tahun sekali, setidaknya adalah disedot secara rutin. Di PUPR ada layanan sedot lumpur tinja secara terjadwal. Itu yang dipromosikan oleh PUPR dan itu akan juga termasuk yang dipromosikan di program ini. Nah, kita ada pilihan Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, pilihannya kalau sebagai konsultan kita mau bergerak ke yang kanan atau bergerak yang kiri. Kalau yang kanan, ini level yang sudah kita ketahui bersama. Tentu saja nanti loan ini diimplementasikan di executing agency. Dalam hal ini adalah Cipta Karya. Di sini ada paket-paket kontraktor, paket konsultan supervisi, DED, dan lain-lain. Silakan, itu adalah satu peluang, dan nanti lelangnya adalah lelang di pemerintah Indonesia, di executing agency masing-masing. Nah, yang sebelah kiri, nah Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini adalah on top dari grant itu ada, mohon maaf, on top dari loan itu ada grant senilai, kalau loan-nya itu 120, grant-nya adalah 2 juta saja. Itu adalah grant untuk mensupport loan-nya. Ya. Dan fungsinya untuk capacity development. Jadi dalam rangka implementasi MSMIP itu ada grant ini, kemudian outputnya nanti adalah ada satu rencana induk pengelolaan air limbah atau lumpur tinjanya termasuk. Kemudian yang kedua adalah kelembagaannya berfungsi, ya, kelembagaan yang mengelolanya. Kemudian yang ketiga adalah SOP, tarif, gitu ya, penetapan tarif dari pengelolaan air limbah itu. Kemudian yang keempat adalah training untuk pengelola atau lembaga itu, yang sebagian besar tentu saja adalah pemerintah daerah kita. Dan TE ini ada 9 tenaga ahli asing kebutuhannya dan ada 10 tenaga nasional. Tentu saja kami karena tidak termasuk 5 tadi ya, sekaligus selamat untuk Yodhya Karya, Inakon, Indra Karya, Prisma Ita, dan Virama Karya. Tentu saja beliau-beliau yang di 5 perusahaan ini lebih berhak sebenarnya untuk bercerita, tetapi sepertinya Mas Gigih memilih saya supaya pilih yang kecil saja, supaya ceritanya cerita sedih kan gitu. Kalau yang besar kan ceritanya senang gitu. Jadi saya ingin cerita yang dari yang kecil seperti itu. Tentu sebagai perusahaan nasional kita agak kesulitan mencari calon tenaga ahli yang 9 orang ini, sehingga mau tidak mau kita harus mencari partner. Kemudian skop dari TE ini juga ada training untuk pengelola satu lembaga semacam UPTD atau semacam lembaga di daerah yang nanti akan mengurusi IPLT atau mengurusi IPAL. Dan ini tidak mudah untuk mendapatkan fasilitas orang-orang atau narasumber yang bisa untuk melakukan pelatihan bagi lembaga sejenis. Ini hal yang baru. Oleh karena itulah kami berpikir setelah mendapatkan informasi dari website ADB tentang adanya technical assistant ini, kami memilih untuk sebelah kiri, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, yang kecil saja, tetapi kemungkinan di sini kompetisinya lebih sedikit, sehingga kami memilih yang kiri. Next slide. Dan yang pertama tentu saja adalah bagaimana kita memilih mitra atau partner atau joint venture. Ini adalah bagian yang paling menentukan. Nah, kami mendapatkan jaringan, ternyata untuk lembaga sejenis ini yang paling dekat adalah di Malaysia, sehingga kami menghubungi, berkunjung ke Malaysia, meminta izin untuk mengajak satu BUMN Malaysia namanya Indah Water Consortium, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, untuk join dengan Kogas mengikuti lelang ini. Dan kami sempat melihat beberapa fasilitas di Indah Water di foto-foto itu, dan tampak bahwa mereka adalah perusahaan BUMN Malaysia yang sangat berpengalaman dalam mengelola ini. Mereka lebih maju sedikit, harus kita akui, dari kita dalam pengelolaan air limbah. Ini ada gambar di atasnya ini lapangan sepak bola, tapi di bawahnya ini Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, itu adalah instalasi pengolahan air limbah di mana tinja datang kemudian diolah sampai dengan nanti menjadi air yang bisa diminum. Setidak-tidaknya ya, tapi saya nggak mau minum. Nah, jadi seperti itu, sehingga kami memutuskan untuk mengajak Indah Water. Saya lihat juga ada fasilitas training centernya, sehingga nanti bisa kita ajak pemerintah daerah kita untuk mengunjungi dan on the job training di sana. Kemudian kesulitan yang kedua adalah tenaga-tenaga ahli yang dibutuhkan, biasanya speknya kan agak tinggi ya Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, tenaga ahli internasionalnya, sehingga terpaksa kami juga harus mencari partner lain yang bisa menyediakan 9 tenaga ahli ini yang tidak bisa disediakan oleh Indah Water. Dan itu kami menemukan ada kolega kami di Spanyol namanya IDOM dan bersedia untuk berpartner dengan kita. Kami hanya minta satu aja, dan itu mohon nanti bisa menjadi pelajaran bagi kita semua, bahwa tidak semua tenaga ahli asing itu dikelola oleh IDOM. Kami tetap meminta dari 9 itu minimal 1, yaitu tim leader, itu dikelola oleh Kogas, sehingga kami meminta untuk 1 tenaga ahli, yaitu tim leadernya adalah tenaga ahli Kogas, dan Kogaslah yang mencari tenaga ahli internasional tersebut. Next slide. Ini prosesnya, tadi sudah diceritakan oleh Ibu Jenny. Kami mendaftar di CMS ADB itu adalah 2 April 2007. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, 2 April 2007. Dan kami baru berhasil mendapatkan TE ini 2014. Jadi membutuhkan waktu 7 tahun, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, untuk memelototi peluang di website ADB, kemudian mengikuti proses lelang, memasukkan proposal, seperti itu. Suka duka kita semua dan tidak usah saya ceritakan. Itu kita proses 7 tahun sampai dengan kita mendapatkan kontrak TE pertama ini. Nah, di dalam sebelah kanan yang CMS yang sebelah kanan ini, kami harus sampaikan kepada Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kita harus menguasai aplikasi ini, karena aplikasi ini adalah aplikasi seperti SPSE kita di lelang nasional ya. Jadi ini adalah e-procurement yang dirancang oleh ADB secara sangat baik, dan kita mengikuti proses lelang menggunakan aplikasi ini, termasuk mengirim expression of interest dan juga mengirim proposal. Jadi melalui ini aplikasi atau platform ini kita berinteraksi. Sebelah kiri yang pengumuman ini, saat ini sudah ada improvement dari ADB, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Kalau kita mendaftar sebagai anggota CMS, itu saya ingin tanya, setiap hari apa kita dapat kiriman peluang proyek? Mungkin ada yang tahu, bisa ditulis di chat. Jadi ADB ini relatif cerdas gitu, mengirim daftar peluang proyek itu bukan hari Senin, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, tetapi hari Minggu saat kita selesai olahraga pagi itu terus dikeluarkan, emailnya masuk ke kita, daftar proyek yang bisa kita ikuti. Sehingga ini memang sangat bagus platform ADB untuk peluang dan bagaimana kita mendapatkan proyek. Kami ingin cerita di bawah bahwa mengikuti proses lelang di ADB ini relatif singkat ya. Jadi kami memasukkan pendaftaran itu kira-kira Februari, kemudian diberitahu masuk sebagai shortlist itu di Maret, ya, kemudian kita diberi waktu untuk memasukkan proposal, itu kurang lebih 2 bulan untuk menyiapkan proposal. Dan dalam penyiapan proposal ini kami menggunakan teknik supaya mengurangi biaya, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ya. Tenaga ahli yang kita calonkan untuk menjadi tim di proyek ini ikut menulis proposal, sehingga kita tidak perlu untuk membayar orang mahal untuk menulis proposal. Juga sekaligus ini sebagai ujian bagi mereka, sebenarnya mereka itu layak untuk menjadi tenaga ahli atau tidak. Banyak sekali proposalnya itu bagus, teman-teman, tapi begitu paparan karena dia tidak nulis, karena tim leadernya itu tidak ikut menulis, dia namanya hanya dipakai untuk CV dan tidak terlibat dalam penulisan proposal, dia kesulitan pada waktu implementasi. Nah, kami menggunakan pendekatan yang murah meriah, yang ridho, yaitu tenaga ahli yang diusulkan itu ikut menulis proposal, termasuk tim leader, sehingga tim leader pada waktu memaparkan inception report dan lain-lain itu mengalir, karena memang sebagian tulisannya adalah tulisan yang bersangkutan. Ya, tentu saja kita di manajemen masih tetap harus menjaga kualitasnya, kemudian menjaga integrasi dengan bagian-bagian lain, terutama adalah biaya. Pada waktu itu, 2014, untuk negotiation itu masih dengan cara offline. Jadi kami diundang, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ke Manila untuk melakukan negotiation. Sehingga ada slide selanjutnya, next. Ini adalah gambar atau foto yang sempat kami ambil pada waktu negosiasi. Kami di sana itu saya pakai dasi karena takut nanti kalau nggak pakai dasi, teman-teman EDB itu kan bos-bos semua, pakai dasi semua. Ternyata malah saya jadi orang sendirian. Jadi teman-teman yang berkantor di belakang foto saya ini adalah kantor pusatnya EDB di Manila. Itu pada bekerja sangat santai, pakai baju yang seperti yang terlihat dalam foto itu. Saya sendiri yang jadi orang aneh karena saya salah berpikir. Saya pikir di sana pakai dasi semua, ya ternyata salah. Setelah kami melakukan negosiasi, di sana kami harus paparan work plan, kemudian juga ada revisi berdasarkan pandangan dari project officer dari EDB, kemudian sampai dengan ke penyesuaian biaya. Jadi termasuk biaya, dan kemudian kami menandatangani berita acara negosiasi dan menandatangani kontrak. Setelah itu kami keluar, gitu ya. Dan saya sampaikan bahwa perjuangan yang 7 tahun tadi, tentu saja jangan lupa untuk tersenyum. Mungkin senyumnya tidak seperti Grace dan Polly pada waktu mendapatkan medali emas, ya, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Enggak sekuat itu, tapi perasaannya seperti apa, saya nggak ingin cerita, biar Bapak dan Ibu sendiri nanti yang mengalami dengan mengikuti peluang-peluang ADB ini. Slide terakhir, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, saya ingin menceritakan next adalah bukan hanya proses pada waktu lelang, tetapi juga pada waktu implementasi atau pada waktu mengelola TE ini. Jadi dengan mengelola TE ini ada beberapa manfaat yang tentu kami harus sampaikan sebagai bahan pelajaran bagi kita. Kita mendapatkan manfaat yang luar biasa, yaitu dengan meluasnya atau meningkatnya jaringan internasional kita, baik itu tenaga ahli maupun partner perusahaan konsultan di luar negeri. Dan sebagaimana kita ketahui, semakin luas silaturahim kita, maka semakin banyak peluang yang datang. Semakin banyak kita berbuat baik pada teman-teman kita, konsultan kita di luar negeri maupun mitra kerja kita di luar negeri, akan muncul tawaran-tawaran seperti itu. Dan juga level berikutnya yang menantang, dan ini sudah ditangani oleh kawan kita dari PT Inakon, adalah kalau tadi level satunya kita mengikuti loan ADB di dalam negeri, yang dilelang oleh pemerintah Indonesia, naik ke level kedua, mungkin bukan level seperti itu ya, saya mungkin terlalu sederhana menyampaikan. Sisi yang kedua adalah kita mengikuti technical assistant yang dilelang oleh EDB. Nah, sisi yang lain nanti meningkat ke yang berikutnya adalah international operation, di mana kita ikut lelang di paket-paket di negara lain. Dan itu nanti kalau ada kesempatan dari PT Inakon, hanya sayang sahabat kami yang kami cintai, Bapak Agus Nusantoro, yang juga sering bekerja sama dengan LKPP, sering diundang oleh Pak Gigi, itu sudah mendahului kita karena COVID beberapa waktu yang lalu, dan kita doakan mudah-mudahan beliau husnul khotimah. Level menuju ke international operation itulah yang akan dituju oleh kita semua. Mari teman-teman Inkindo bersama-sama untuk menuju level ke sana supaya kita bisa mengoptimalkan peluang ADB ini. Saya ingin cerita bahwa Indonesia itu pendiri ADB. Sekali lagi, Indonesia itu adalah pendiri ADB, salah satu pendiri ADB, pemegang saham dalam ADB, dan saya pernah di sana, saya tidak tahu sekarang, naik ke lantai atas, di mana di situ salah satu BOD atau Board of Director-nya itu adalah orang Indonesia, kalau tidak salah dari Kementerian Keuangan, bertugas sebagai Board of Director atau pimpinan di ADB di sana. Sehingga sayang kalau peluang-peluang ADB ini baik di dalam negeri, tapi mari kita menuju ke peluang-peluang di negara-negara lain yang alhamdulillah sudah dimulai oleh teman-teman kita yang lain. Yang kedua, manfaatnya Bapak dan Ibu sekalian adalah secara otomatis akan meningkatkan kapasitas internal dari manajemen kami. Jadi sudah mulai belajar bahasa Inggris, sudah mulai bagaimana berkomunikasi dengan bahasa Inggris, standar dari report meningkat, ya, dan seterusnya karena kolaborasi kita dengan mitra dan perusahaan asing dan juga konsultan asing. Dan perlu untuk kami berikan informasi dari sisi keuangan atau finansial, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, untuk mengerjakan TA ini adalah high profit. Jadi nanti kalau mau cerita seperti apa secara jeroannya kami akan cerita, tapi karena memang strategi kami adalah mengelola tenaga ahli asing. Tapi kalau mengelola tenaga ahli nasional saja, ya tentu Bapak dan Ibu sudah bisa mengukur, karena pasar Bapak sudah tahu. Tapi kalau kita berhasil mengelola, memiliki tenaga ahli asing under perusahaan kita, itu akan meningkatkan profitabilitas. Dan saya jamin tagihan ke ADB itu adalah tagihan yang lancar. Tidak pernah ada tagihan tidak lancar di ADB. Itu kita dibayar langsung dari rekening ADB masuk ke rekening kita. Dan yang paling menyenangkan adalah bagian yang terakhir yang ingin saya sampaikan, bahwa untuk mengerjakan TA ini kita mendapatkan tax exemption atau pembebasan pajak karena kita ini dari grant. Jadi ada surat khusus itu kepada yang terhormat PT Kogas. ADB menyatakan bahwa semua penerimaan yang didapat dari grant ini adalah bebas pajak. Kemudian ke setiap tenaga ahli juga sama. Diberikan surat khusus sehingga nanti itu tidak menjadi beban dari PPh 21 mereka. Jadi marilah opportunity ini yang tadi diceritakan oleh Ibu Jenny, itu kita lihat setiap minggu, jadi jangan olahraga terus ya, Pak Imam, Pak Peter, jangan golf terus, tapi emailnya dari EDB kita lihat, kemudian mari kita bekerja sama untuk mencoba meraih peluang yang demikian lebar tersedia di ADB. Demikian saja yang bisa kami sampaikan. Terima kasih dan mohon maaf apabila ada hal yang kurang tepat yang kami sampaikan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih Pak Agus. Thank you very much for the inspiring explanation.
Saya bukan Pak Agus, Pak. Saya Pak Jaka, Pak. Pak Agus.
Pak Jaka ya, maaf Pak.
Karena Bapak sudah sering dengan Pak Agus ya.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Pak Jaka. Thank you very much for the inspiring explanations. I remember, don't forget to smile after years of struggle, right, Pak?
Thank you, Pak.
Yeah, okay, because we have limited time, we should go to, now we start the open forum. As we have collected questions in question and answer box, let's friends show it up into our common screens. Yeah, so we will discuss about the first questions from Bapak Prayit. What is the general process or stages of submitting a project to ADB? I think this question would be supposed to be answered by Miss Jenny, right? Okay, Miss Jenny, would you like to answer this question, please?
Hi. So my understanding is that it's not so much a procurement question, it's regarding how you propose a project to ADB. And I think that would be going back to the country partnership framework, and that is the overall scoping of the country pipelining, and that is generally handled, I think, by the borough's executive agency, and that will work with the ADB resident missions and also our sector team to formulate the pipeline opportunities. So if you have got any suggestions on projects for ADB to consider, then I think best thing to do is probably approach the relevant line ministry so that they can put that on their list of recommendation. In most countries, I think it's Ministry of Finance that collect all of it together. So yeah, it's a country level project planning approach. Thank you.
Okay, that's a very interesting explanation by Miss Jenny. With our team try to collecting the questions, and I think the first question is supposed to be for Mr. Brajes. Mr. Brajes, you mentioned before that COVID-19 affects a lot of changes in education sector. Can you elaborate more about the challenge that ADB has faced for ongoing or past project regarding the education sector? Mr. Brajes?
Yeah, sure. Let me try to be as brief as possible. Sure. So as I mentioned, there are challenges that were there before COVID also. For example, I mentioned about slow progress on learning achievement. And that continues to be the case. But then the use of education technology, for example, was not that much. And it was largely confined to private sector. Now with COVID, what we have seen is the sudden closure of schools and shift to online learning forced everyone to think differently. So the lesson I mentioned is how to blend this technology with traditional teaching and learning, and particularly looking at new generation technologies like adaptive learning, which actually these platforms generate data on students learning, teachers efficacy on providing pedagogical practices and so on. So that is one area. Second area related to that, if we look at higher education, is Indonesia is a very good example where up to 40% of credits can be earned from online learning in higher education. And what it is doing is opening up curriculum, reform, because you can source from global providers on like machine learning, AI, and so on. But also that requires a system, what Indonesia is putting up. Similarly, we have had difficulty in terms of getting efficiency on teacher professional development, teacher quality. How do we improve? Because that's the crux of quality. And now with COVID, you can do different teacher professional development at scale, bringing different information and support system to teachers, like how do you teach the 21st century skills, how to standardize, how to embed assessment on a continuous basis, formative assessment, so that they can trace, learning of students. So these are the kind of things that are have been there, but with the new thinking, I think we can come together and have better discussion, particularly with governments and also with other stakeholders that can bring these innovative solutions. So I stop and back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Petrus, for the answer. So we move to the next question, please. The next question for Mr. Joris van Etter. I don't know whether this is already being answered by you, Mr. Joris. I see from the question answer box that you have answered several questions, but yes, I would like to repeat. Is there any opportunity for Indonesian bidder to participate in urban development project outside Indonesia? If yes, how can we access and know about the detailed information? Over to you, Mr. Joris.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, pertanyaan ini saya belum jawab. I haven't responded on this question yet in the Q&A. I actually didn't see this question, but it's a very interesting question. Absolutely, Indonesian bidders are very welcome to participate in urban development projects outside of Indonesia. That is one of the key elements of our procurement system, to keep it open for that our countries get the best value for money when it comes down to certain solutions. Of course, I mean, the moment you decide that you're going to bid for a project to help construct a large water supply network in Cambodia, you better link up with a good Cambodian firm. But absolutely, we, of course, when it particularly comes down to technical assistance, traditionally we had a lot of European and American, Australian companies take lead and run these projects. But now, and that's why it's so exciting to hear Pajaka stories. Yeah, it's about how we are very excited about having Indonesian firms also play and share relevant experience with other countries we work in. It's not easy. You will need some partners, of course, but we highly encourage it.
Thank you, Pak Joris, for the motivation. And also the next question is for Jenny. Now this is the real question for Jenny. Okay, Jenny, what are requirements for consultant to participate in ADB projects? Maybe the main requirements, including national experts from Indonesia. Is there any special requirements, or maybe please, Jenny.
Thank you, Gigi. In terms of the requirement for the specific assignment, it's all listed in the CSRN and CMS. So if you're interested as a firm or as an individual, have a look at the terms of reference document in the advertisement. It should describe the scope of work in terms of the assignment. If it is a team recruitment, which is a firm, it will list out the minimum requirement in terms of qualification and experience, and the duration that should be expected. The only requirement ADB has is really in terms of eligibility, and it's around nationality of the individual, a consultant having to come from ADB members country. If it is for the firm needs to be legally incorporated in an ADB members country, and none of the consultant is in any of the UN sanction list. If there's any further specific requirement, it's really different from each assignment to assignment, and it's documented in the advertisement notice on the consultant management system. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. So the main requirement is just you are the member of the state member of the ADB. You are coming from the state member of ADB. Okay, and then the next question is from Ibu Puja atau Bapak Pujas, if I'm mistaken, Bapak Pujas Badi Respati, for Jenny again. So what's the meaning of past performance certificates in bidding supporting documents, Jenny?
Hi, so past performance certificate is probably just an example, sometimes the bidding document might, in terms of the qualification criteria, will ask for evidence of completed projects or supply of good of certain quantities, complexity, and similarity to the scope of good and works outlined in the bidding document. And past performance certificate could be just a certificate to demonstrate that you have completed the work or you supplied the goods, and it can be obtained maybe from your client in the past. But very often, a lot of the physical works would issue a completion certificate, and that could be one form of evidence as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jenny, for the explanation. And then we move to the question number 5. Okay, then Ms. Jenny, are all the ADB projects in Indonesia will be announced in a procurement portal? Yeah, please, Jenny, if you know something about this, please answer, or I would.
Yeah. I'm not quite familiar with this portal
okay.
myself.
Maybe maybe Keiko could answer. Keiko, please.
Yes. Okay, sorry, I need to.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, for the SPSE question, for that, most of the ADB funded project administered by the government, like the Ministry of Public Works, yes, for the works and consulting services are advertised at LPSE of MPWH. For today, we also mentioned about the procurement administered by ADB, like consulting services under the technical assistant, like the opportunity that Pak Jaka explained. That kind of opportunity will not be issued at SPSE, but the ADB's consultant management system. Also for the procurement opportunity, even administered by the executing agency, ADB also published the business opportunities information in our website, as Jenny also presented. So I hope this is helpful.
Yes, thank you. But Ms. Keiko, don't go anywhere first. We need to ask for the next question. Is related to you. The next question is, please move to the next questions. The hello, no, okay. Okay, okay, Ms. Keiko, thank you for the answer. No, okay, this is it was answered by Jenny, but maybe it is better to be answered by you, Ms. Keiko. This is from Bapak. No. The before one, like the stage of the proposed project. Okay. Never mind. Yeah. Ms. Keiko, could you elaborate the process of stage of submitting a project to ADB?
Actually, I think Jenny covered the general idea, and then
okay,
maybe
sure.
Yolis would be the better position about this programming aspect. But in terms of my understanding, before handing over to Yolis, in terms of the official dialogue in case of Indonesia, we have Bappenas, who is also the center of listing up the project to be financed by the donors, including ADB. So let me hand it over to Yolis, who is more familiar about the programming process.
Yeah, so when it comes to programming, of course, this is between Government of Indonesia and the Government of Government of Indonesia and ADB. Yeah. So the key part here is, of course, that the Government of Indonesia have to decide for which areas and which projects they want to borrow. And we normally, on the one side, you have for that the Blue Book process on the Government of Indonesia side, which is every time prepared by Bappenas. And then on the other hand, you have this rolling, what we call now still country operation business planning. And so there we agreed together with the government about which projects we're going to to develop and finance through ADB. And that sometimes can be a long process, particularly now that we are very keen to make sure that projects before we sign a loan are really very, very ready. So as you know, a project has to go from Blue Book to Green Book. Green Book is when it really, you meet all the readiness criteria. For ADB, that is similar. So you first have Blue Book, agree on the general projects to be financed. Then, you prepare the project. Then you have the Green Book. That is then the basis on the government to start engaging with the ADB on the detailed, for example, loan fact-finding mission and the loan negotiations. And then we have the loan approval. And then the government will use the loan to start procuring the goods and services as agreed under the loan. Itu aja, Pak.
Oke, terima kasih Bapak Yuris. Okay, this is maybe the question before. Yeah, okay, thank you for Bapak Jaka Sumanta. Maybe this is the last question because we have prolong our session for like 17 minutes. For Bapak Jaka Sumanta, could you give suggestion to get free full experience of international experts? Yeah, please Pak, continue.
Ya, ini dari PT Wasitan kalau tidak salah tadi. Begini, Bapak, jadi cukup banyak freelance yang tidak memiliki perusahaan atau tidak terikat dengan perusahaan asing tertentu yang ada di pasar, jadi yang ada di kita ini. Layer pertama adalah orang-orang asing atau expert asing yang saat ini sudah tinggal di Indonesia. Apalagi kalau sekarang COVID kan untuk mendatangkan expert asing ke Indonesia itu tidak bisa sekarang, tidak di zaman PPKM ini. Sehingga memang yang available adalah banyak freelance, konsultan asing yang tinggal di Indonesia, bahkan kadang-kadang sudah bisa bahasa Jawa, Pak, atau bahasa Sunda karena dia ternyata istrinya orang Jawa atau istrinya orang Sunda, begitu. Dan itu cukup banyak. Bagaimana cara mendapatkan tenaga-tenaga ini? Tentu saja dengan kita bergaul di Inkindo, dengan kita berorganisasi di asosiasi, insya Allah kita bisa saling share, bisa berkenalan dengan mereka. Nah, tetapi juga menggunakan media sosial saat ini juga tersedia, Pak. Bapak bisa pakai LinkedIn kalau tidak salah anak-anak muda sekarang ini untuk mendapatkan tenaga-tenaga yang semacam itu. Jadi tidak ada sebenarnya seperti yang sudah kami praktekkan batasan bahwa kita ini sebagai perusahaan nasional hanya memiliki atau hanya diberi opsi atau hak untuk mengelola konsultan nasional. Enggak ada itu. Sehingga bahkan ini misalnya kalau kita sudah mampu nanti ada tender yang ada tenaga ahli internasionalnya katakanlah 4 atau 5, itu kalau bisa kita isi semua atau kita memiliki tenaga ahli semua yang enggak usah berpartner dengan perusahaan internasional atau perusahaan asing. Kalau kita mampu dan pengalaman kita mencukupi untuk masuk dalam shortlist project itu. Demikian, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Pak Jaka. I think that's the last questions. We are a bit late, but it's okay. We have fruitful discussion. But if there are still unclear informations and probably you would like to further clarify, the presenters have given contact points like Pak Brajes already mentioned before in his slide, or Jenny or Yoris or Pak Jaka. So don't be hesitant to reach out them and send message to us. We will send the reply in email. So for all of the questions that we haven't answered yet, we will reply in email. Okay, and I would like to repeat thanks for all of the presenters and participants for the explanations, questions, and enthusiasm during our today's event. Thank you for your attention. I'm giving back the floor to Ms. Verisa. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, Mas Gigi, for leading the main session. It was wonderful, and thank you for all great speakers, Mr. Brajes, Mr. Yoris, Ms. Jenny, and Bapak Juka Sumanta, and Keiko, of course. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we just finished the main agenda, and we are now heading to the end of the meeting. But before that, let us hear the closing remarks from our Director for Business, Climate, and International Affairs, Ibu Dwi Wahyuni Kartianingsih. To Ibu Dwi, the time is yours.
Terima kasih Mbak Ica, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Bapak Ibu. Selamat siang, tentunya salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Kita sudah sampai di penghujung acara, dan untuk itu kami ucapkan terima kasih kepada seluruh peserta seminar peluang usaha ini yang sampai saat ini masih berada di layar masing-masing ya, di depan layar masing-masing untuk mengikuti acara ini. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, kita sama-sama sudah mengikuti tadi seminar peluang usaha ini bersama Asian Development Bank, yang tentunya dihadiri, ini kami juga appreciate sekali kepada seluruh peserta, dihadiri oleh pelaku usaha nasional, kemudian asosiasi juga, kemudian juga kementerian lembaga terkait yang sebagai pembina pelaku usaha, dan tentunya juga rekan-rekan di LKPP sendiri. Bapak Ibu, sekali lagi bahwa seminar ini yang kerjasama antara LKPP dan Mitra Pembangunan ini adalah termasuk kegiatan Road to Rakornas Pengadaan. Jadi insya Allah pada bulan November ini kami akan mengadakan Rakornas Pengadaan, dan ini adalah salah satu pemulaan gitu ya bagi acara Rakornas tersebut. Kemudian juga seminar ini berupa rangkaian. Jadi setelah ini nanti kita ada lagi seminar peluang usaha dari mitra pembangunan yang lain. Dan Bapak Ibu, bahwa seminar hari ini tentunya kami harapkan telah memberikan informasi mengenai peluang usaha, khususnya proyek-proyek pengadaan barang jasa di ADB, baik yang ada di Indonesia ataupun di luar negeri. Khusus untuk sektor-sektor yang kemarin kita juga sudah ketahui, ada sektor transport, ada sektor air ya, dan juga hari ini kita mengikuti untuk sektor pendidikan dan urban development. Bapak Ibu, melalui seminar ini juga kami harapkan dapat memberikan pemahaman bagi kita semua mengenai cara mencari peluang usaha, dan tentunya cara berpartisipasi dalam pengadaan tersebut, dalam potensi pengadaan tersebut. Dengan demikian, Bapak Ibu memiliki kesempatan yang luas untuk memanfaatkan peluang yang ada, berpartisipasi dalam tender bukan hanya dengan pendanaan APBN, APBD, tetapi juga dengan pendanaan dari mitra pembangunan, baik di Indonesia maupun di luar negeri. Kemudian kami berharap juga bahwa informasi sharing ini atau sharing informasi ini dapat mendorong dan meningkatkan minat Bapak Ibu pelaku usaha nasional untuk ikut serta dalam pengadaan barang jasa internasional. Dan Bapak Ibu, apabila Bapak Ibu pelaku usaha memerlukan informasi lainnya terkait pengadaan barang jasa pemerintah maupun secara umum pengadaan barang jasa, maka Bapak Ibu dapat bergabung bersama kami melalui framework vendor directory kami, directory.lkpp.go.id. Framework ini sengaja kami wujudkan, kami siapkan untuk pelaku usaha nasional dalam hal mendapatkan informasi terkait pengadaan barang jasa. Bapak Ibu, sebelum kami menutup kegiatan hari ini, tentunya perkenankan kami menyampaikan terima kasih untuk pimpinan yang tetap mensupport acara ini, Bapak Kepala, Ibu Deputi 1, kemudian juga ini special, I would like to give our highest appreciation for Procurement, Portfolio and Financial Management Department of Asian Development Bank, especially for Mr. Jeff Taylor as the Director for PFP1 and Mr. Rustam as the Director for PFP2. And all of our speakers, very valuable speakers today and also yesterday. Today we have Mr. Joris Van Etten, Bapak Brajesman, Ibu Jenny Chu, dan juga Ibu Keiko tadi yang sudah juga menjawab pertanyaan, dan tentunya teman-teman di ADB lainnya dari Indonesia, ada Ibu Olga di sini, kemudian Ibu Yanti, terima kasih sudah mengikuti acara ini sampai akhir. Dan akhirnya Bapak Ibu, ucapan terima kasih dan apresiasi tinggi-tingginya juga kami sampaikan kepada seluruh peserta, Bapak Ibu para pelaku usaha nasional, asosiasi, dan juga rekan-rekan kementerian, dan tentunya LKPP. Dan tak lupa, tentunya ini sangat apresiasi sekali kepada teman-teman dari Direktorat Pengembangan Iklim Usaha dan Kerjasama Internasional yang sudah bekerja keras, bekerja cerdas untuk menampilkan seminar peluang usaha ini berjalan dengan sukses. Dan Bapak Ibu, akhirnya kami ucapkan terima kasih. Sampai bertemu pada acara seminar peluang usaha berikutnya, yaitu bersama World Bank dan Islamic Development Bank. Demikian Bapak Ibu, terima kasih atas perhatian Bapak Ibu, dan wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sehat, salam pengadaan. Kembali Mbak Ica.
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Dwi, for the closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, as Ibu Dwi mentioned earlier, that we will hold another series of seminar with the World Bank and Islamic Development Bank in the upcoming September. So stay tuned on LKPP website and make sure you don't miss the information. And before we leave, make sure you have filled out the attendance list and evaluation form. Thank you to all participants. We hope that this event is beneficial for you and hope your business is doing well. And who knows that you can win ADB's project as well. All right, that wraps up our meeting today. I hope you enjoyed this seminar as much as I did. On behalf of the committee on duty, I apologize for the wrong words and actions. Stay safe and stay healthy. And we will see you on the next series of seminar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu.
Terima kasih semua Bapak Ibu.